Anybody out there support legalization of cannabis? I thought there was somebody out there.
All right, I'm going to give it upstairs to Pat.
All right, thank you guys for coming. I want to thank everybody for patroning Flamingo Cantina tonight and as often as you can. We have Dreadneck Wednesday, every Wednesday, not just the first Wednesday when we're here. Is this the first meeting for anybody? Did everybody get their name badge, name tag, where you can write down if it's your first meeting? If you didn't, we're just trying something a little new where we can meet each other and kind of have an idea how long we've been involved. You guys will know who's on the board, who's been to a meeting before. So just get, if you don't mind, get a name tag and put your first name on it. Mark if you're a board member, if you're a member, if you're a guest because you haven't joined yet. And that way we kind of have something to talk about already. So if it is your first meeting, we're TXNORML, and we are a chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, and our mission is to change the laws, to change the minds and opinions of the voters and the people who need to vote, and educate them on the reasons why we believe that cannabis should be legal. So let me reiterate, our mission is to change the laws. I can't tell you guys how many messages and questions we get asking us things like where they get a hookup, or is it legal to buy seeds online, or will they be confiscated, or these types of things. So please keep in mind as you're a member, as you're a supporter, that our goal is to change the laws to stop people from being arrested so we don't have these kinds of questions. And that has to be our mission. Thank you. We have quite a few board members here tonight. I want everybody to know who they are. Maybe they can raise their hand if you guys can look around. We have our Deputy Director, Jack Spinkle, is behind the table where we're being spotlighted here. Over to her right is Jamie Spencer. He's our legal counsel. And Jamie tonight will also be our guest speaker. So he'll be talking after me and taking a little break. And he's doing an Ask a Lawyer kind of thing. So if you guys have a question for Jamie, whether it be something local, something personal, something you've seen in the news, or something going on in another state, he has a tablet and you can add your question and he will address it in a few minutes. Let's see, who else is here? Rick is here, our historian. He's filming the meeting, so if you know somebody that you want to make sure they see the information and hear the information that you hear here tonight, then you can send them a link. You can go to our YouTube channel. It's TXNORML, and we've got quite a lot of videos uploaded of local information, interviews with board members and members and supporters, sometimes patients that have done interviews. So check out our TXNORML YouTube page, and that's Rick recording for you tonight. We also have Dave behind the table, shining on himself there. Dave is our Veterans Liaison, so he's here to address any issues and questions that veterans have in relation to cannabis legalization. Lori is, there she is. She's been handing out these name badges, so she helps us with membership and shipping merchandise orders. See who else is here. Rita, our treasurer, is up in the stands there. She takes care of all our finances for us. And Topher is somewhere here, I saw. Topher does a lot of social media and event work. I don't know where he is. He may be upstairs doing some socializing. He's doing his job, socializing. And Dave, we have another Dave. So we got Dave B, that's our vet guy, and Dave W. Dave helps us with events also. All right, so those are your board members. There may be some others that have snuck in that I haven't noticed, but just take a look and talk to whoever you need. We got that idea for these name tags from DFW NORML. Jax, our deputy director, and I were there last Saturday for their meeting, and we spoke to them about this statewide strategy that we talked about a lot, and how we all have to be on board together. So this is just part of it. We just get ideas from each other and implement those ideas because they have their people walking around with name tags, and I thought, what a great idea. So thank you DFW NORML for that. We're all working together and make sure that all your friends and family know that there are other chapters in Texas, and we're developing more all the time. We've got an El Paso chapter starting. Okay, so If you didn't notice, or if it was a little crowded when you came in, we have a merchandise table, so please check it out when you have a chance. We've got a lot of handout information and a lot of low-priced information that you could even buy for your friends or for people you connect with and have conversations with. So you have a button or a sticker, or you can do guerrilla stickering where you go to bars and places where you see stickers everywhere and you just want to spread some love for Texas NORML. We appreciate that. And just free handouts, membership brochures that list penalties and lawyers and talk about us. Don't just take one for yourself, take 5 for your friends, and you will end up in these conversations with people where you have something to give them. So please do that. So before I get into the news, let's just talk about why we're all here, right? We have a plan, we have a goal, and we have a strategy to have legalization in Texas by 2017. Does that sound okay? Can we fight for 4 more years and really give it a go, give it your best and talk to everybody? Like, this can't end here. It can't be that you come and you listen and you get some updates and then you leave and wait till next month. You have to start some conversations, wear something, do something. Just mention it. It doesn't have to be that you want to smoke or you think that people should be able to smoke. It can be, hey, I was watching CNN and I saw the medical correspondent for that television program, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, talk about these patients that are being helped. I saw it. It can just be that you watch TV. It's that common of a stance now. It doesn't have to be a closet, a secret, something that we're hiding. And that's what's bringing about change, because more and more people feel comfortable coming forward. And so we have a campaign that we are hiring a lobby firm in coalition with other organizations, and we're raising funds successfully. Thank you, because people believe this can happen in Texas. Quite amazing that people really believe in this. You're hearing from people all over the state. And the idea is that there's a matching donor in California who's pledged $100,000. So between now and the end of the next legislative session, if you don't remember, it's every 2 years. So the end of the next session is May 2015. And so we, in coalition with other organizations, are attempting to raise $100,000 to match that donation and make the most of it. And we're hiring this lobby firm regardless, and they are going to help us make a difference in Texas. So you can contribute to that. You can feel like if you can go without a latte once a month or twice a month, then you can give $10 a month to this effort. And that helps us secure that funding and know that we can go forward. So please check out our table. We have donation envelopes. We have subscription levels available on our website, or you can do a one-time donation. Just to give you an idea of what we're looking at in Texas, I was recently in El Paso, and I was asked to speak on a panel for the Border Legislative Conference. So this is a conference that is a venue for legislators in the Mexico side and the U.S. side of the border to convene and talk about issues that affect both of them. And they requested a legalization panel. This panel that I spoke on with 2 other panelists had no opposing view. It was called the Marijuana Legalization Legislation Panel. 3 panelists, one from Colorado, one from Texas, and one from Mexico. One of the representatives that was there from Arizona asked me who will be speaking from the opposing side. I said, no one. Because there is not an audience for it anymore. And Senator Jose Rodriguez, who is from Texas and one of only 31 of our senators, came out publicly that weekend in support of legalization. At the end of our panel, he told the members of that conference that the train has left the station. So that is huge. That is 1 out of only 31 of our senators coming out publicly. So that is historical, and that's what's happening. So that's why we believe we can make it by 2017 with your help. Between now and then, there will probably be 10 more states that have legalization, you guys. It's not as far off as it seems. The snowball is just getting bigger. All right, so let's talk about a little news. Little cannabis trivia and history. Who knows who said this? Marijuana, in its natural form, is one of the safest, therapeutically active substances known to man. Okay, so 25 years ago, that was included in a ruling by the DEA Chief Administrative Law Judge in 1988, you guys. They have known about this and been fighting us for so long. But it's changing, and I just wanted to kind of briefly touch on this to let you know that while we are seeing changes on a state level and people wonder what's happening at a federal level, the federal changes are moving very slowly, but this is exactly what we expect if you look at the prohibition and repeal of alcohol prohibition, that it's the states that push the changes and the federal government follows. That is what happened with the repeal of alcohol prohibition, that the federal government did not change and repeal the amendment until a number of states had already changed their laws. So we're exactly on track for being successful in the same way that alcohol prohibition was repealed. I'm not comparing alcohol to marijuana. I'm saying that this is the way that minds are changed and laws are changed, and we are on track. NORML filed a petition in 1972 to have cannabis rescheduled. And the opinion from the DEA did not come until 1988. So that's what kind of progress we're talking about on a federal level. They delay for decades, they don't answer until they're ordered to answer, they don't process lawsuits. So another one was filed in 2002, and the DEA rejected that in 2011. And that decision has again been upheld this year by the Court of Appeals, ruling that there are insufficient clinical studies existing to warrant a judicial review of the rescheduling on a federal level. And we all know why, right? It's circular reasoning that you put it in a level that says there is no accepted medical value and then there is no research available because you've already made a decision that it has no... Right, from when they researched it. So we know that this is changing, but just it's still a process, and don't think that nothing is happening on a federal level. It's just very slow going. So in the area of making history, we talked last month about how the Department of Justice had affirmed their statement that they are not interested in challenging state laws as long as legalization laws have regulations in place and those regulations are working. So they are keeping the cannabis that's grown and sold and used inside their state. They're keeping it from minors. It's not involving cartels or gangs or violence or other drugs. These types of things that honestly we are not advocating for anyway. So after our last meeting, the week after, there was a Senate hearing that addressed the conflict in state and federal law. This is historical. Our U.S. Congress had to weigh in, and yes, they were not all positive, but most of the ones that weren't positive are not of our generation, most of us here. So there were some representatives that basically think everything should stay the same, but there were some that were from Colorado. There was a police chief from Seattle who says that we have complementary goals. The opposition and the advocates for legalization have the same goals. We all agree that we don't want children using, we all agree we don't want impaired driving, and we all agree we don't want to continue enriching criminals. So this is where we have to put our focus on where we agree. When you talk to someone and they don't think that cannabis should be legal, if you find out what their concerns are, most likely you can point out to them that prohibition does not address them. So just consider that it's much easier to convince someone that prohibition is bad than that cannabis is good. We don't have to convince someone it's a miracle plant in order to get them to understand that it's a failed policy. And that's really all we want, is for them to acknowledge. We're not trying to convince anybody to use or that they have to agree on every point. Let's change the rules. Through a couple of these and get to some of the good news, but unfortunately we've seen that arrests have stayed the same for marijuana arrests from 2011 to 2012, but that's after a very, very high decline between 2006 and 2010. So yes, we're still arresting, about half of our drug arrests are for marijuana, But that did experience a sharp decline, and hopefully we'll see that again. But right now we're looking at half our drug arrests are still for marijuana, and almost 90% of those are for possession only. The other ones are mostly for sale and manufacture, but you have to consider that pretty much all cannabis cultivation falls under sale and manufacture. So it's not always that someone is a drug dealer when they get charged with sale and manufacture. They could just be growing for their personal use and still have that charge. We did show, though, that the highest arrests are in the Midwest and in the South, so that's really where the 50% comes in, whereas in the West, they're only arresting at like 20% of their drug arrests are marijuana related. So legalization works. On the brighter side of those kind of numbers, plant seizures are down. So we have a huge drop from 2010 to 2011. The USDEA dropped from 35% of the plants they were seizing and fell another 42% between 2011 and 2012. And that, again, is largely due to California, who has fallen 73% since 2010. Right, they're letting people grow. It's not even legal, it's just medically legal, but they abandoned their program to go after plants. And, okay, so in other states, laws that are being changed, just a reminder, the laws that we passed, it's never the end. 3 years ago, New Jersey passed a medical law that didn't allow edibles because they were worried that that would be marketed to children. Guess what? Governor of New Jersey has now signed the law allowing cannabis production of edibles only for 18 and under. Because what we're realizing as we implement these laws, we're realizing that, oh wait, but children have medical needs too. What do we think they're going to do? They can't smoke. We have to make these options available. So the laws are changing, and the mindset is changing, and the models of production and use that we're seeing are accommodating what we're running into. They're also changing their laws so that they can grow more than just 3 strains, which if you can only grow 3 strains in a new industry like cannabis, you're going to grow for high THC, which is the market usually for the psychoactive properties. Allowing more than 3 strains open up the market so they can have high CBD strains as a choice for patients, including minors, that we've seen that it helps a lot more. Excuse me. In Michigan, we had a poll that the NORML chapter there conducted, showing that most of the voters there agree with eliminating penalties for marijuana offenses. Almost half agree with taxing it and regulating it like alcohol. A smaller percentage, 16%, endorse the fine only, and 4% think, of course, just total repeal. So I can see something changing in Michigan soon for full legalization. Only 26% said they supported continuing what we're doing. And along that trend in Michigan, and as a reminder, you guys, this is something that we can't do. It's another way that we're barred. In Texas, we can't collect signatures, which is how most of these states get laws changed, and we can't get something on the ballot in that way. We also can't change the laws on a local level, which Michigan has been doing. And you have to realize that that 26% thinking things should continue has been lowered to that degree by 4 cities already voting to decriminalize, which we can't do. But another city is voting in November. Lansing, Michigan is voting to repeal criminal and civil penalties for possession of cannabis by adults on private property. So they're voting on that, but we can't do that. We have to work on the state level through our legislators. So just keep that in mind. But this progress in other states, like in Michigan and in New Jersey and anywhere else, it only helps us. And especially this next one. My home state, Louisiana. The Louisiana ACLU conducted a poll that showed a majority of state voters back legalization, even in Louisiana. That will help us. Just like when Arkansas gets medical, these southern states having changes is going to help us. New Orleans, again, like in Michigan, they could do make changes on a local level. So New Orleans already has a $100 ticket, which we can't do, but again, helps us. So in Louisiana, 65% endorsing medical use, over 50% endorsing regulating and taxing, and over 50% endorsing a fine only. Louisiana has some pretty strict laws too, you guys. Their Senate turned down a reduction in penalties this past session that would have helped. So they have even second offenses are punishable up to 5 years in prison. That's just for possession. So if Louisiana can make a change, we can too. So what do we always hear? We always hear like Texas will be the last, Texas will be the last. I've heard that about Louisiana too, and I always say maybe Oklahoma, maybe not us, right? Okay, so poll out of Oklahoma, again conducted by the NORML state affiliate in Oklahoma, showing 71% approving medical. 57% preferring fine-only offenses, but even more importantly, and this has even been admitted by our own current governor, Rick Perry, 81% said it should be up to the states. So that's in Oklahoma, where minor marijuana possession of subsequent offenses are punishable by 2 to 10 years, and sales of any amount are punishable by 2 years to life. So maybe we'll be last, maybe they'll be last. The bottom line is everybody's making progress. The favoritism is happening everywhere. So that's my news for this month. You guys be the resource, please, for everyone you know. I appreciate you all coming and hearing us update you, but I really, really appreciate you being a satellite for the information you gain and leaving here and letting everyone you know depend on you to update them. I want to introduce our NORML legal counsel, Jamie Spencer. He's a member of our board and a member of the National NORML Legal Committee, and he's going to do a few questions and answers for you guys.
Good evening. How's everyone doing tonight? Okay, it's been a couple of months, I think, since we've done an Ask a Lawyer. Some kind folks have written out 4 questions for me. If you guys have more, want to raise your hands or anything like that during this, or whether it's in response to something I say or something you're thinking about, just let me know. I'll try to get you. If not, come up and find me afterwards. I love talking about this stuff. I love being involved in this organization. It is absolutely a privilege to belong to TXNORML. I'm going to go a little bit off script and touch on something that Cheyenne was talking about, Texas being the last state. I used to say Texas was going to be the last state. I see a whole bunch of people here that have been with us for quite some time and were involved in our legislative efforts a few months ago. And I just have to say that this legislative session was by far the best we've ever had. We were taken seriously. We had hearings, we had veterans, doctors, nurses, patients, consumers testifying at those. Our witnesses were treated with respect. There were amendments proposed by the hearing committee members, meaning, okay, well, I won't vote for the bill if it's like that, but if you tweak it, I'll vote for it if it's like this. We've never been taken so seriously before, and the one message that I got from all of your efforts and all of your friends' efforts from this legislative session was that Texas is not going to be the last state. We're not going to be anywhere close to the last state. We are making real progress. But let's get to the Ask the Lawyer stuff. Okay, the first question. The Attorney General just overturned mandatory minimums in drug cases. Does that apply in Texas? Is it retroactive? This question is referencing a memo put out by Attorney General Eric Holder probably 6 or 8 weeks ago. I can't remember exactly when it was. And unfortunately, it doesn't really overturn mandatory minimums. And it applies in Texas to federal cases. Eric Holder is the head of the Department of Justice, so he only deals with federal cases. Of course, we have federal cases for marijuana and other types of drugs in Texas, but in terms of most marijuana cases, I don't know the numbers. I'm sure it's at least 95, it might be 98 or 99% are state cases, but for the most part, unless you're talking about absolutely outrageous amounts of marijuana or people with prior felony convictions, Texas state charges don't involve mandatory minimums. But let's talk about what Eric Holder said, since it does apply in Texas. The mechanism by which all mandatory minimums are handed out is through the indictment itself. An indictment sounds scary. It's just a piece of paper. It charges you with a crime. And if they put in it that you possess a certain amount of a certain drug, so there's two parts of it. How much was there and what type of drug was it? You put those two things together, you very often create mandatory minimums. What Eric Holder's memo to his assistant attorney generals and local prosecutors was that in some to most cases, they should leave the amount of the drug out of the indictment. That's whether it's cocaine or methamphetamine or heroin or marijuana. With marijuana, mandatory minimums kick in depending on typically the number of plants instead of the weight, although there is a conversion and that gets weird and mathematical. We can talk about that upstairs later. So in all federal drug indictments, there's a potential that if the defendant is convicted, they will serve somewhere between X and Y months in prison. In federal, they talk about months, but we're often talking at least tens or even hundreds of months. So we're really talking about years, decades. You see 240, 360 month sentences and those sorts of things. So one problem that the Eric Holder memo does nothing about is even the minimums before they attach the extra mandatory minimums are way too high for drug crimes. And Cheyenne talked about this a little bit as well. The defense lawyers are really waiting to see how the Department of Justice deals with the exceptions. The exceptions, and I'm going to start with a legal phrase called the relevant conduct. If the relevant conduct of my client doesn't include being a member of a gang, being violent, having a substantial criminal history, whatever that means, whether or not there were possibly children involved, or there was, some sort of access for children, whether or not they're a leader of the drug organization. If none of these enumerated factors are met, the prosecutors are supposed to leave it out. I think that this is a very good thing that the Department of Justice is doing this. I've had to accept baby steps as the solution. If we look at the Colorados and the Washingtons, we can see that they started by small decriminalization measures and or medical marijuana measures before they got to complete legalization. The scary thing for defense lawyers is that first phrase I talked about, the relevant conduct of my client. The relevant conduct of my client, unfortunately, can include everything their friends and buddies did that were also involved in the organization. So it leaves just almost unfettered discretion on the part of the prosecutors as to whether or not they're going to really stick to what I think the spirit of the memo is to them as prosecutors. And I will say this. In our Western District of Texas, which is the federal portion of Texas for Austin and a bunch of surrounding areas, I don't think that our federal prosecutors really have their heart in marijuana prosecutions in the first place. So that's a good thing. I had a case a few years ago where my client had somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100-ish, probably a little bit more plants in a house, and there was certainly evidence that it was a long-term operation, that wasn't the first cycle. And fortunately, I and some other lawyers were able to convince the federal prosecutors that they just wanted to send it to state court and, as they say, not make a federal case out of it. They could easily have done that. So as far as Austin, Texas, and our Western District of Texas, given that they're prosecuting these as federal crimes, the prosecutors have the right attitude. I have high hopes about that memo, and that's the mechanism of how they get rid of mandatory minimums. The second question somebody has asked me is, if you are in a state that has legal marijuana, can employers still give you A's, fire you, refuse to hire you, and things like that? I'm not an employment lawyer, but I'm going to tell you just about everything I know about employment law. When medical marijuana comes to Texas, which it certainly will, Texas is a right-to-work state. And right-to-work is one of those legal terms that means the exact opposite of what it sounds like. That means is employers have the right to fire you for any reason unless, and this is unlikely, that they not only fire you for an unlawful reason, but that they admit it. Yes, I'm firing you because you are an elderly, black, whatever, protected class. Being a medicinal marijuana user is not going to be a protected class under the 14th Amendment. I can just tell you that. So, the same way that employers right now in Texas can refuse to hire you if you're a smoker of nicotine or for pretty much any reason. There's not going to be a whole lot of protection for medicinal marijuana users. I don't think it's all bad news, though. I think that employers are people too, and most of them don't care if their employees are smoking marijuana as long as they're not, overly high at work. But just in terms of the legal protections, there's not going to be a lot of legal protections in the employment law. The third question, any offshoots questions, by the way, of those first two questions? Anybody have a question to throw out? All right, everybody going good?
I have a question. Question here.
Question, okay, sorry, I missed it.
Didn't the Federal Sentencing Commission also put out guidelines based on Attorney General Holder's recommendations?
Federal sentencing guidelines, unless I've missed something in the last little bit, have absolutely not changed. The Sentencing Commission has, for years even before Holder's statement, the district court federal judges don't like sentencing people to mandatory minimums. Everybody knows it's an absolute drop. There are written decisions from not just the Sentencing Commission. You're right. They've criticized what's happening when it comes to drug laws, and you can read some really, really sad opinions of the actual sentencing judge basically pleading with Congress. I am sentencing John Smith to 240 months in prison for yada, 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 and I desperately don't want to do it. I would go way, way lower if I could. This is ridiculous. Please do something about it. It's a tragedy, and everybody knows it. I mean, the emperor has no clothes. If the Sentencing Commission has specifically addressed the Eric Holder memo, that's probably something I should know about. I haven't had any federal marijuana cases in the last 6 weeks. But I do know, it wouldn't surprise me, because I know that the people on the Sentencing Commission are very unhappy with what Congress has done.
Yeah, from what I recall, they actually published a new set of guidelines that based on Holder's recommendations. I'd recommend looking it up and reading that. It's very, very interesting stuff.
Okay, well, I'll definitely look into that. The problem that most federal drug defendants get into is the mandatory minimum situation. I mean, the whole thing's a problem from beginning to end. I don't know how I characterize it in a world of problems, right? So if the federal prosecutors go through with what I believe the spirit of Eric Holder's memo is, things are going to get better in federal court. But of course, we need to not be in federal court for marijuana in the first place. All right, any other questions about the first two portions of Ask the Lawyer? All right. Can you grow industrial hemp in Texas? Can you grow or buy industrial hemp in Texas? I just now saw the buy. So the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act, that was the first federal anti-marijuana law, the big one that we all know about, actually encouraged farmers in a just pre-World War II status to start growing industrial hemp for the fibers and those sorts of things. By the way, I know a lot more about THC than I do hemp, but I'm going to tell you what I do know about this. And for about a 20-year period, maybe 10 to 15 years after the war, industrial hemp was grown in the United States. It kind of died out for a little bit, I believe for economic reasons. And then in 1970, we've got this question about the Federal Sentencing Commission. Once the 1970 Controlled Substances Act was passed by the federal Congress, it did not make it a criminal offense to grow industrial hemp, but it killed industrial hemp because it gave such strict regulation of industrial hemp, and it, if I remember this correctly, gave the DEA, or the agency that was going to become the DEA, the power to approve permits, and basically they do not approve permits. So you can buy, I know you can buy industrial hemp products, but those are almost all imported. I don't know, I do know that in the last 15 to 20 years, actually a lot of the southern farming states, Kentucky, Georgia, there's about 8 to 10 states that have passed laws, state laws saying we need to study industrial hemp and how we can make money for our local Kentucky farmers by doing this. And there have been some others that have relaxed or repealed. There's another 8 to 10-ish states that have relaxed or repealed their own state laws against industrial hemp, so that's kind of moving in the right direction. There may be somebody that the DEA has given local permits to. Again, I'm not a super expert on that, but basically the DEA takes the standpoint that the ridiculously low amount of THC in hemp, which is not enough to get low, never mind enough to get high on, means that they shouldn't be giving out permits. And the last question is, this is a classic, we need to go over this on a regular basis. If I am pulled over, do I have to consent to a search? What are my rights? So, the person that's asking to search is the man, A, with the gun, B, the man that decided that he wanted to become a police officer, and that apparently he gives a shit if you have marijuana because he's asking to search your car for it. And if he wants to search, he's probably going to. I'm just saying that as a framework for trying to remember the power situation when you're actually out there on the street. My generic rubber stamp answer to this question is pretty much always the same thing. Be polite and ask the officer. Tell him that you're sorry that you were speeding, you knew you shouldn't have done it, that you're on your way to a meeting or whatever. You've got places to be. You don't even have to lie about it. But you need to meet somebody. You need to get to work. I'm in a hurry. I know I should have been speeding. I'm sorry about that, officer. Do I have to consent to the search, or may I be on my way? Officer, am I still being detained? You can actually ask the police officer. Now, he might give you the wrong legal answer. I've had a couple of motions to suppress granted this year on cases where my client did all the right things and was polite, and eventually actually in both cases, a district court judge decided that the police officer did not have the right to do everything that he did out there on the street. But in terms of what can I do when I'm there, be polite, say, officer, I'm in a hurry, may I leave? I've really got places to be. I've signed a speeding ticket. If he says no, I'm going to search your car anyway, he's going to search your car anyway. If he doesn't actually have the legal right to do that, let your lawyer sort it out later. All right, those are the 4 questions. I think that's all we've got time for. I'll be around. I became a lawyer because I love talking, so please come up and ask me more questions after the meeting. Again, always great to see all of y'all out here. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you, Jamie. It's been really great, you guys, that we have developed to the point now where we have outreach and specific directors that are able to answer certain questions for you, like Jamie. And we also have, he's not here tonight, but Vincent Lopez is our Director of Patient Outreach. And that's another area that we obviously need to reach out to people and get them involved. And Vincent, while he can't be here tonight, he created some flyers for a new group that he has created called Patient Alliance for Cannabis Therapeutics. And if you are a person that has a serious condition or disease that's helped by cannabis and you want kind of a place to communicate with people for support and empowerment and his experiences in being involved with Texas NORML, he has this flyer that has information on his website, on his Facebook, and I printed about 20 of them, so they're over at the table. But he basically has gotten involved with us over the past 3 or 4 years. He's testified at committee hearings, he's spoken at rallies and here at our meetings, and he's felt very empowered as a patient for speaking about how he is helped. And he can talk to you about his experience and just created a forum for patients to discuss their conditions and how they can be helped and educate and help each other. So please check that out and tell people about it. It's more information on our website, more information on our Facebook, and that's also where you can find our events, which I'm going to run through real quick with you guys. So in addition to our first Wednesday meeting here at Flamingo, I've been conducting a third Wednesday meeting called a strategy meeting in just different areas around Austin. So we've done, Central Austin, we've done Round Rock, we did kind of South Central, and the one I'm having on the third Wednesday of this month, which is October 16th at 6:30, is at the Texican Cafe on Nantucket. So that's pretty far south Austin, almost in Judah. So invite your South friends. And we're just going to be talking in more of a restaurant kind of forum where I can have feedback and talk with more people about their involvement and what approach we're taking. We also are doing a private members mixer, which we do annually, and that's Friday, October 25th, so right before Halloween, and it is a costume mixer if you want to get dressed up. You don't have to, but if you want to, we're doing prizes. For our best costume, we'll have a couple of different categories for you. We did a Prohibition mixer last year, and it was a lot of fun, so we figured we'd do it again. It's so close to Halloween. So you can purchase tickets and become a member at the same time, but you do have to be a member to come. It's a private event, and we will disclose the location to ticket holders about a week before. And members are allowed to bring guests. So you do not want to miss it. It's always our most fun event and our most kind of casual, laid-back event. We'll have music by the Paper Moonshiners and food from Hot Mama's Arafat, which is Mediterranean style. So you can buy those tickets online or at our table. And the following Friday, we'll be right back here at Flamingo Cantina for our 8th annual Smokeout, 6th Street Smokeout. We've been doing it, we did it for years at Momo's, and last year we started having it at Flamingo Cantina. This year we're going to have the Mau Chaplains, who you're about to hear. Also we'll have Subculture Patriots and Clyde & Flynn's Whiskey Business. So it's kind of a mixed night for music, a little reggae, a little hip-hop, a little bluegrass. So much more reason to come out. You can invite everybody, there's something for everybody. If you are a member, you can get in for half price, so your membership has already paid for itself in part. $10 at the door for non-members and $5 for members. And then we have our monthly meeting back here on November 6th. If you are interested, on November 9th, there's a Students for Liberty conference at UT. It's totally free. They're even paying for your lunch. And there will be speakers from Reason, Cato Institute, several different institutes that I think will be really, really interesting to you guys. We're doing Race for the Cure on November 10th, and that is part of our athletic group, Team Hope Through Cannabis. Greg is our director that handles that. He's not here right now, but he'll be here at 10, working the table from 10 to 12. And you can also talk to Greg about registering to vote. If you're in Travis County, you're not registered to vote, or you need to change your address, Greg will be at the table and can help you do that. If you're outside of Travis County, we have the forms for you, but you'll have to mail them off yourself. And lastly, we have scheduled a picnic on the Capitol grounds and a tour of the Capitol for Saturday, November 23rd at noon. Again, all this is on our website, TXNORML.org. We have a calendar on every page. Just look on it and you will see more information. But I want everybody to be comfortable with the Capitol before the next legislative session. So we have until 2015. We're just going to go and have a picnic on the Capitol grounds. You can bring your family, your friends, and then we'll walk around the Capitol and just kind of see how it's laid out and understand how to navigate to the representatives and senators' offices. I'm going to bring up the comedians in just a few minutes, or rather I'll bring up the outlaw Montgomery Wayne, and he will have some comedians for you. But we'll have just a few minutes in between to chat, and then we'll have comedians entertain you, and followed by some reggae music. So please stick around, go by the table, and check out our merchandise. And members, remember when you're talking to other people, we've got these name tags that let you know if they're a guest. You can explain to them the benefits of being a member. If they're a first timer, please introduce yourself and tell them more. Thank you.
Morning when my work is over, I'll fly away home. Lord, what bright morning when my work is over, I will fly away home. One bright morning when my work is over, I'll fly